Hello and welcome. Today we want to solve the Cambridge International AS and A-Level Information Technology Paper 2 Spreadsheet Task for our Specimen paper. Okay, so let's do the paper. So we want to go to the question 2, which says that open and examine data in file specfind.csv. Save this file as a spreadsheet. Take note as a spreadsheet. This one is a CSV, comma separated values. So we need to save it as a spreadsheet, which means we need to save it as a Excel workbook, right? With the file name find followed by your center number, candidate number, for example, like that. So this is the format that we are supposed to do. So we can go to our spreadsheet and open our spec find. Always we click on that triangle to highlight everything, and then we go between A and B, we double click. And when we double click, we are doing this so that we can actually see what is in our cells clearly, so that we can examine. And now we can see that, okay, this is what we have. We have name, class month, number of students taught. This is the information that we've been given, and we've been asked to save this as find. So you have to now use the name that we have been asked to use. Okay, so the question paper I said, let's save this as find as a Excel workbook, right? So we are going to save it in the same folder, the current folder that we have our information, and the save as type has been comma separated values. So we are going to change and make it a Excel workbook, and then we give it the name as expected from the question paper, which is, they said it should be find. Okay, so find, that's the name, followed by our center number and candidate number. Okay, and then we are going to save that. Okay, so let's go back to our question paper. Okay, after doing that, add the contents of the file spec.dents.csv to a new worksheet, right, named dents in your find workbook. Okay, so we have our find workbook and we have our space dents, right? So this is the information that we have. We always have to right click there and double click so that we can see the information clearly, right? So this is the information that we have. So we just want to copy this. We can say Control A to highlight everything, Control C to copy, and then we want to go and paste this in our find workbook. Okay, they said create a new worksheet, so you're going to add with that plus, and then you're going to say Control V to paste the information, and then we have to name this one dance. Okay, so on the worksheet we can rename to dance. Okay, so this is the worksheet for in our workbook, and we've called it dance. Okay, so let's go to the next part. The next part now says, in the dance worksheet, extract a list of the teacher names from column A and place this in column O. Extract a list of classes from column A and place this in column P. Sort both of the lists of these lists into alphabetical order and ensure there are no duplicates. So this is what we need to do now. Okay, so we are going to our dense information now in our find. Okay, and we've been asked to take class and teacher. This is the heading. So the class and the teacher, the class and the teacher, this is the information that we've been given. So we have been asked to take the class tab and put it in our P, and also take the teacher, which is donor, and place it in our O, right? So the different ways in which we can do this. Either we use the flash fill, and because they did not say we want to see a formula, you can use a formula to extract this, but because they did not say we want a formula, we are just going to use a flash fill. Okay, so this is how a flash fill is used. We are just going to put our information close to the cells that we want to use, and it's an efficient way of extracting values from a list that is given. You know, Excel studies sequences, so it can be able to extract using the flash fill. So here you will be just writing the name of the teacher, right? So we are going to say donor. For the teacher and for the class, we are going to say tab. Okay, so this is the teacher and this is the class. And then you select something again. Maybe we'll go there. On this one, we are saying Zoe is the teacher. So it's like you'll be just giving it guidelines, right? So it's going to study what we are doing to say, okay, this is what you used for this, and this is what you used for this. And then it will use that to create a few for us. And then for these ones which have two values for the teacher, we are going to write it so that it also knows that if you find two, okay, and then that's check. Okay, so that's the information that we have now. We go to data. Okay, so we want to say for the data that we have here, right? We want to use the option flash fill, which is going to just fill for everything, okay? Because it's just going to take the sequence that we have been using to say the last word is your teacher. So it's just selecting that, right? And then also for this one, if you say flash fill, it's going to also say, okay, that's what you have been using. And now we have the first words as our information, and it has been put there. Now we don't need this anymore. Okay, so we have used our flash fill and we have filled in the information as requested. So now we want to make sure that we sort the information. And then we are going to sort this one as well. Okay, so now we have sorted our information. After sorting, we want now to remove duplicates, right? So we're just moving from the person. We highlight also for the teacher so that we remove the duplicates. Okay, so this is the information that we have now. Sorted and with no more duplicates. So let's go back to the question paper. Okay, so we did that up to ensure there are no duplicates, right? Place a single formula in cell Q2 to display the list of months in this column. Do not change the contents of other cells in this worksheet. Okay, so we want to place a single formula in cell Q2 to display the list of months in this column. Do not change the contents of the cells in this worksheet, right? So we are going to go to our worksheet, our find, right? So we want to put our months there, right? So these are the months that we have, right? So the function that we are supposed to use is transpose. So we are going to highlight our information, right? This is the area that we want to fill in, and then we write our function to say equals transpose. So transpose is used when you have information that is placed, for example, this one is placed horizontally and you want to write it vertically, right? Or if you have information that is written vertically and you want to represent it horizontally, okay? It works both ways, okay? So it says now what do you want to transpose? And then we are going to say this is what we want to transpose, okay? And then we have our information. So you then just hit Control Shift Enter, okay, to have that. This is because I'm using a 2019 Office. If you are using a 365, you just press Enter and then it then just comes out like that, okay. So this is the information that we have been requested. Can we go to the next one now? In this spec find worksheet, users will select the teacher in cell B1 and class type in cell B2 and month in cell B3, and the number of students will be displayed, right? In this spec find worksheet, edit B1 to B3 so that the data can be selected from drop-down lists linked to the list edit in step 2. Okay, so we are now saying in our find, if we go to our spec find, this is the information. We now want to say, okay, we want to add data validation for the values that we have already. So we want to say, right, we want to select a list, and then we are saying the source of the list of the information that we want to use is the first one that we selected. Let's just go back a bit. Okay, let me just go back a bit and see which one had we selected to make the teacher name. Okay, so when saying in teacher name, we want to select the source should be in the dense, and then we select the teacher name. Those are the values, and then we are going to say, okay, right? So when we do this, now we now have the list of the teachers so that a person can just select. The next is class. So you click on your class, you go to your validation, and then we say we want to select this list from, we go to our dense, and we click on our information. Okay, and that's the class. Then for the month, these are the selection of the months that we have. And then we say, okay, okay. So we've added the validations that are expected there. Let's go to the next part. Okay, we are done with 3. Now we are on question 4. Okay. So question 4 is now saying select data from the drop-down list and format it to look like this. We want to format the information to look like this. Kayla, Ballet, September. Okay. Ballet. September. Okay, so this is the information, and this one has to be, we need to format it to look exactly as it is given in the question paper. This is bold and it's also center aligned. Okay, so let's check. Okay, I think that's how it is and it's matching. So now we want to go to this one now on question 5. Question 5 is now saying place a formula in cell B5 that uses index and match functions to display the number of students for the selected data. Okay, so now we are going to our, yeah, okay. So we want to say when we have selected this, we want to have the number of students that are taught. So when we look into the information that we have been given, we want to say if you select the class and the teacher, you can see that this has 2 values, the tab donor, which is class, then the teacher. And then if you select a class and the teacher, and then you select the month, it should give you the value that we are looking for, right? So it's our index match because we have the table that we are given, right? And then the table that we have been given, this is the table array that we are going to use as our index table. And then we have these to represent our rows, and we have these values to represent our columns. And then it should give us this. But okay, so let's now go and write our function. Okay. Okay, so we are going there and then we are going to write index. The array that we want to use now is the dense worksheet, and we select the data. Please take note, you don't include that because this is going to be represented as columns and that one is going to represent the rows. So the table that we select is the actual data that we want. Okay, so this is the table that you select, the actual data that we are going to use or that we are going to select from. Okay, so that's what we are going to use. And then after that, this is the table array. After selecting, you put your comma. Now we want to put the row number, right? And we don't know the row number because the teacher in class can actually change and it can differ, right? So what are we going to do? We are now going to say, let's use the merge function. This is the function that we are now using to make sure that it's going to help us to pick the row that is correct. We'll start by our lookup value for the merge function. So the lookup value now is the values that we are going to, these values, right? This is the values that are going to be used as our lookup value. So what are we going to do to find the lookup value? We have class and then teacher. So we want to select that information. So we are going to our, and then we have our class. So this is our class that we are going to select. Okay, so when we select our class, it's going to be representing our lookup value, right? So this is our class, and it's going to work hand in hand with the it's going to work hand in hand with our teacher name. Okay, so what are we going to do? We are going to use the concatenate feature so that we represent the two, the class and the teacher name. So we have our class there. Then we are going to put our ampersand, okay, because we want to concatenate. And in our ampersand, we want to include the space, right? And then we put our ampersand again. So we are saying we are still working on the lookup value. So our lookup value is the class and the teacher. So and the space and then the teacher. So this is the lookup value that we have, right? So when we put our lookup value, we are now going to say, okay, comma, we are done with our lookup value, comma, what is the table array, right? So the list that we have our information, which is our class and teacher, is these values, right? So we are going to select the values to represent our list or range, okay? And then we put our comma. We want to use 0 for an exact match, okay? And then that's our match function, and that match function is representing the rows, right? And now we want to put for the column, okay? So we are going to say comma. The moment we are saying comma, we are saying we are done. And now what is in bold for the index is now the column number. What is the column number? We are going to replace that with a match function again, because we are saying the column number is going to depend with what the teacher or the user of the module is going to select. So we are going to select the cell that is going to hold the month. That's the lookup value. We go put our comma to say I'm done with the lookup value. And now what is bold is the lookup array, meaning can you put lookup array now? And then we go back, we said these values are the lookup array that we are going to use. We put our comma and then we put 0 to say I want an exact match, right? And then when you put your exact match, you can then now say, let's close the bracket, okay? So you can take a look at the function, and this is the function that is going to be representing the index match function for us, okay? Okay, so the other thing is, if you forget to put brackets, you will see that the function Microsoft Excel also give you an error to say we are leaving out brackets, and it can actually help and correct for us. Okay, so you can just say, do you want to accept the correction, and it's going to take the correction for you. Okay, so what we are saying is that whatever change that we are going to make, here we had merge opened and then closed. This one merge opened and then closed there, but we had opened an index there, so it means we needed to put another bracket to close for the index. So it's going to do that for us. And then that's the value that we have now. So we can say that's the value for our index merge function. Okay, so we will be done and would have managed to take those the values. Okay. So let's go back to our question. So we are done with that one. So the next question is now saying, use this spreadsheet to find the number of students for the following extracts. For each extract, save your worksheet with the question number followed by your sender number, candidate number, for example, 6A. So we are on question 6A. This is what we want to use. These are the classes. So you want to say 6A, 6B, 6C. Okay. Now we are going to do for the first one. So let's do for palette. We go to our values. We want to put the values as expected from the question paper there. So we are saying ballet with Lara in September. Okay. So with Kayla. All right. Okay, so this is the first one actually. So we are going to just say save as. Make sure that when you are saving your information, just keep the same folder. Can all your information be saved in the same folder? Number one, and with the correct namings. For example, this one we have been asked to save it as 6A, followed by your sender number and candidate number. So just save it as expected. Set up sender number A, candidate number, right? And when you are done, we go back to the question and do the next scenario, street with James in November. So we are just going to change the class to be street with James in November. And then when we change those information, now we have the number of students that we taught. And then we need to save this as 6B. This is very important to just save as expected so that when it's being looked for, we actually open the, and we can now just, instead of changing, we can just change the and say B, and it's going to save in there. And then we are going to go to the next part, tape with Adam in June. Tape with Adam in June. And you can see the value is also changed, and we are saving this as what? Okay. This is okay. So when we are done like this, we can say we are done. Now let's go to the next question. Okay, so on question 7, it's saying add a new worksheet called chart to your workbook. Okay. When we have added, what are we supposed to do? Copy cells in A1 to M20 and P1 to P6 from your dense worksheet into the same cells in your chart worksheet. Okay, so let's do that first. Create a new worksheet called chart. We are going to call it chart. Right. And then we want to copy the information A to M20 and the other part is A1 to M20, right? And then P1 to P6, right? That's what we want to copy. Okay. Copy, and then this one we want to paste it in the chart. Paste, and then we need to also paste P1 to P6 from your dense worksheet, right? Now we want P1 to P6. This. Okay. And then we go in our P and paste. Okay. Then after that, in your chart worksheet, right, insert a new column between A and B. In cell B2, place a replicable formula to extract only the type of class from column A. Replicate this formula to row 2. Okay, so the first thing is to insert that column between A and B, and then in our B now, the B2 now, okay, we want to place a replicable formula to extract only the type of class from column A, right? So we can now go, we want to insert, right, a column between A and B. So we have our inserted column now. So in this column, we want now to write a function that is going to extract only the class, right, from this information that we have been given. So we need to write the function to extract, right? So the class It's class and then teacher. So tab is the class, right? So if tab is the class, it means that I'm writing TAP. So I'm starting from the left side. So my function will be left. Right. Left of what? Left of this. Okay. Because our left function is always saying, give me the text first of what you want to give if left. Then I put my comma. Now the number of characters is what we now want to work on. What is the number of characters? So the number of characters now, we want to say it's the number of characters. We don't know the number of characters because sometimes we want to autofill this, right? So these are three, these are more than three, these are less. So we want to find a common ground. So a common ground from this list of function is what? The common ground is the space, right? So what are we going to do to get the space? So we are now going to say, okay, I'm going to need to find the space, okay? So find is going to give you a numerical value. So for example, the space there, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. The space is carrying the number 4. Okay. So we want to now find the position of the space. So if we're bringing in function, find function, it says find what way. That's how we use the find function. Find what way. So we want to, what do we want to find? We want to find the space. And then we put the space in quotes, right? Right. So we want to find the space. So we are putting the space there. Right, find text. This is what we want to find. We want to find the space there. We put our comma. And then where do we want to find the space? We want to find the space in that cell. That's where we want to find the space. So we want to say, this is going to give us a numerical value. And the space is going to be position 4, right? So when the space, when it finds a space, is going to say 1, 2, 3, and then gets at the 4th position and say, I found space, and it's going to return 4, right? So it's going to say 4 characters from the left, but we don't want to include the space. So we are going to use a -1, whatever you are going to get from there. Can you subtract 1 there, right? So if it's going to find 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to say -1, 3. So it's going to say 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to return my value outside there. Okay, you need to close the bracket. Okay, always keep forgetting to close the bracket, but Excel always helps us with closing the bracket for us. So it has closed the bracket for us. So that's the function, and that's how we have managed to find or use the function to give us out the answer. So we have used left because we want to take values from the left side, right? And then left of A2, left of that, and we used find. Find is going to give us a numerical value to say find what way. Find a space in A2. So it's going to give us for A2. That's what we are working with right now. And then -1, so that it's going to make sure it returns to the value that is before the space. Okay. So when we are done, you can click and auto drag, or you can double tap there, and then it's going to give us the information. When it gives us the information, we can extract, increase the column so that we see all the information, right? And then we give the appropriate heading there. Okay, tie. type of okay, type of class like that. And then we have our information. Right, I think we can now go back to the question paper again. Okay, the next part is saying, we have done that, replicate, we have replicated to row 20. Now we are on that point. Copy cells in C1 to N1 into cells R1 to AC1. Okay. We want to copy cells from C1. Let's recheck. C1 to N1 and place it in R1 to AC1. Okay. C1, that's C1 to N1. Okay, so it's giving, these are the information. The months we copied, and it has been asked to be placed where in our R1. It says R1 to AC1. Let's see where it's ending. Yeah, it's ending in the correct position. Let's go to the question paper. And then it says, place in cell R2 a replicable formula that displays the total number of students, right? Studying this class, place in cell R1, place in cell R2 a replicable formula that displays the total number of students studying this class in this month, right? Okay, replicate this formula in all classes. Okay, so we want to go to our okay, so we want to write to say here we want to have the total number of students, meaning that we want to sum, right? And then studying this class in this month, right? So we want to say, because there's a condition that it has to be using something, now we are bringing in the if. Okay, so we are going to be saying equals sum if, because we want to add with a condition. So we are going to say equals sum if, right? So we want to say the range now. The range is what we are going to be writing as our information in our type of class. All right. So this is the range that is going to be used. So what we do when we are using our sum if now, it says this is our help to help us make sure that we write it correctly. Equals sum to add, if to add with a condition. So we are saying the range of values, this is the range of values that it has to select for it to add, right? So we are going to say sum if we give the range B2 to B20, right? And then when we have given the range that we want to select, we are now giving in also the criteria, right? So what is the criteria that we want to use for us to put the information in there? We want to use a certain criteria to say, what is the criteria that we want to select for this answer that we are going to be selecting? So in this range that we have been given, can you select ballet for this one, right? So the criteria is going to be changing. If it gets increased, if we autofill going down in that cell, it's going to be contemporary. If we get into that cell, it's going to be modern. If we get into that cell, it's going to be if we get into this column, it's going to be street. So we want to use this value to be our criteria, right? So we are saying this is our criteria because we are saying from the range that we have used, this range that we have used, can you select for Q2 only, the value that is in Q2 only, right? Which is our value, all right? And then you put your comma. The sum range now is the values, okay? So we're now saying the values that we want to use, this is the values. Right? Because we are under January, right? So these are the values that we want to use. So some if always start with the range that has the information, the criteria that you want to use to select the information, and this list or range of cells that have the actual values that are going to be added is going to be coming out last. So this is the information that we are going to use, right? And then we close our bracket. But we have been asked to make sure that we are going to autofill this, right? So it means that we need to use absolute referencing, right? So with absolute referencing, we are saying the B column has to be logged. The two column has to be logged again because this is the range of cells, right? So the range of cell is not going to be changing, right? The range that we are going to use to select is not going to be changing. So we are going to make sure that we log it, right? So we have logged and logged, but this one is going to be changing. Remember, we said that our Q2 is going to be changing from Q2 to Q3 to Q4 to Q5 going down. So meaning Q is not changing, but the 2 is changing. So I can put my $ there before the Q to just lock the column and then leave the 2 because it's going to be 3, 4 going down, right? And then now we are going to say for the values, it will start taking for January, all right, which is C2 to C20. But then it will move for February if we increase going to our right, when we autofill going to our right, it's going to move and then now include February, right? And then when it includes February, it's going to change also and then include March, April going, all right. So we need to then also look to make sure that it's changing. The values 2 to 20 is not changing, but the uh, C is going to change to D, is going to change to E. Okay, so this is our information that we have. Okay, so now we can hit enter so that we can see the answer and autofill our values. Okay, yeah, now it's now responding. Okay, so we want to autofill going down our values, and then we also want to fill in going to our right. Okay, so this is our information and the values that we have selected. Okay. Okay, so this is the function that we've used to autofill for the different classes and the different months. Okay, so this is the sum function that we have used. Okay, so let's go to the next question. Okay, so we are now on question 8. It says, use your chart worksheet to create a fully labeled inappropriate chart to compare the number of students for each type of class, right? So we are going to have to select the information that we have used, and then we create the chart that is expected for the students type for each class for each month. Okay, so save this as a spreadsheet. Save this file as a spreadsheet with the file name chart followed by your sender number, candidate number, blah blah. Okay, so now let's go and create the chart. So this is the information that we have, and we want to use this information now to create the chart. Okay, so we can go to insert, and then we want to use a chart. Okay, we can actually use a line graph, it's taking time. So we can use a line graph to use the information. Okay, so we can use line graph to select our chart. Anyway, let's highlight including the values so that it can give us. Okay, so we highlight that information and then we insert our graph. Okay, then we have our information. Okay, I just wanted to move the chart only. Okay, like that, so that it doesn't cover the information that we have. Okay, so this is the chart that we have created. Okay, so we have our months, and we have our values, we have our key to say this is for what, this was for what, this was for what. Okay, let's see what they want us to show on the chart. Okay, now it says on your worksheet, on your chart worksheet, use your chart worksheet to create a fully label and to create and fully label an appropriate chart to compare the number of students for each type of class for each month. Okay, so fully label, they just said fully label. So we are going to put any more labelings that we think are appropriate for this question. So that's our chart. We can put our chart title, right? So our chart title, we can say to compare number of students for each type of class, right? So we can highlight. We can highlight up to there because we wouldn't want it to be also too long, but that's the information it's just doing. So we can put that text for our chart. Okay. To compare the number of students for each type. Okay. Okay. So we can even include the information to say for each month. It can also fit in there. So for each month, we can also include that because we also want to take care of the word where they said fully label in appropriate chart. Okay. So we need to just do our best in labeling what we think is needed, right? Like that, we have our key, our legend there, we have our values there, and if we need to add anything to our chart, that's the plus. You can add from there, or you can add from chart element from there. And then when we click on chart element, we can see that we can also add axis titles to say what is that, so that the person can actually see to say, so then what are these values that we are showing, okay? And then this value as well, what are these? So we can put to say these are months. So these are the months. Okay, let's write it. So these are months. So we can also write here to say these are number of students. Okay, so that whoever is reading the chart can actually read the chart easily. And we can actually increase it so that it can be read easily as well. Okay, so that is the information that we have represented for the chart. And then we can go back to the question. It then says, save this file as a spreadsheet with the file name chart followed by your sender number, candidate number, right? So we are just going to then save We're just going to be changing the first part. In maintain, sender number and candidate number is written already as an Excel workbook type. It's maintained there. Okay, saved. Now we can go back to the question paper again. Oh, okay, so this is the end of the spreadsheet question. This is now a different question. This is a video editing question. So we are going to end here. Thank you for watching.